So you think you can beat me by outlawing my thoughts with your rogue politicians and the judges you bought? So you think you can mold me like I'm made out of clay? Oh, you want me to answer? Just got this to say. Take a look into this warrior's eye. Tell me what you see. Take a look into this warrior's eye. Oh, that still beats free.
I'm Paul FROMM. I'm the Midnight Man with Stormfront Radio with a nightly program of news and commentary. I urge you to catch me. I'm on every night on Stormfront Radio, and that's stormfront.org on the internet. The Mexicans are coming. No, not to the United States. The United States is already being invaded. There are over 12 million illegals in the United States, most of them from Mexico. But Canada, we're a little late in the invasion game, at least from Mexico. We've been experiencing an invasion from China, from India, from Pakistan, and from Jamaica, from some points in the Arab world for the last 20 years. But we're relatively new to the Mexican invasion. Now, it's not because we have an adjacent border, as the Americans do, to Mexico. It's simply because of an absolute failure of will on the part of our government to protect Canadians. In September of this year, 2007, Windsor, Ontario, which of course lies just across the river from Detroit, Michigan, has experienced a bit of a mini invasion. At last count, something close to about 300 Mexicans had simply driven across the border, many all the way from Florida. They paid so-called consultants $400 to fill in the paperwork, and many of these people admitted that they were illegally in the United States. Many had been there for years, which of course tells you something about the lax enforcement in the United States. But as there's a bit of pressure developing in the United States, they found an even easier mark, and that's Canada. So they drove across the border, and they told us the good news: I am a refugee. Now, of course, it's totally bogus. They're not a refugee. They're in the United States. Mexico is, on a good day, a democratic country. How can they be a refugee? But you see, under Canada's brain-dead policy, common sense doesn't mean a thing. George Bush could actually cross the border and say, I am George Bush, President of the United States, and I am a refugee. And you know what? We would have to say, well, we'll have to look into that. But in the meantime, Mr. Bush, we're going to give you welfare. We're going to give you a place to stay in public housing. We're going to give you legal aid. You may be a millionaire, but that's okay. We're going to give you Medicare. If you need your teeth fixed, we'll take care of that too. It wouldn't matter that it's preposterous. He's the President of the United States. It doesn't matter. Under our idiotic laws, crafted by the socially activist, unelected Supreme Court, common sense means nothing. We would have to treat him as a refugee until such time as he'd had a hearing and he didn't like the results, an appeal. Well, that's what the Mexicans are doing. They come across the border and they say, I'm a refugee. Well, they don't have a place to stay? No problem. The welfare department of the poor city of Windsor has to take care of them. In fact, the mayor of Windsor is howling that the resources, the limited resources of Windsor are being overtaxed. The Salvation Army hostels are full. Many of the poor Canadians have been unceremoniously turfed out and sent to less advantageous locations. The Mexican invasion is absolutely an indictment of the weak, gutless Canadian system. It's great for the Mexicans. They're up here. They will get welfare. They will get Medicare, dental care, legal aid to assist them to make their bogus refugee claims. And Canada's largest so-called refugee component the past 3 years has been Mexicans. The nationality that has made the largest number of refugee claims in the past few years have been Mexicans. For instance, last year, 4,953 Mexicans made a refugee claim a fair number of them were adjudicated, and only 28% were found to be indeed refugees, and that's exceedingly generous. This year, thousands more have come in, and only 13% have been found to be legitimately refugees. But as long as they're here, they're sucking up the welfare, taking up public housing. The children have to be educated. They're on the Medicare system, the dental care system. They are a huge drain on the Canadian taxpayer. Now, you might say, well, is there nothing the government can do? Well, as a matter of fact, there is. It's all very simple. The only reason they're able to slip across the border is that we don't require Mexicans to obtain a visa. So, wouldn't it be simple to simply to say, well, to try to curb this abuse, all Mexicans coming to Canada will have to obtain a visa. You know, if you wish to go down to Mexico as a tourist, you have to obtain a visa. But our government says, oh no, that might be an unfriendly action. No, this is just an excuse for failing to put Canada and Canadians and the Canadian taxpayers first. So it would appear that the invasion will only increase, because as pressure in the United States, quite rightly, begins to focus on illegals and on trying to restrict the invasion largely by illegals of the United States. As pressure builds down there, many of these people will decide to move to greener pastures, at the expense, of course, of Canadians, Canadian poor, and the Canadian taxpayers. So 4 years ago, Canada and the United States signed a treaty that appered to be at least a small step in the right direction. And this was a treaty that was being called the Safe Country Treaty. So the idea was to prevent people from refugee shopping or asylum shopping. So if a person was in the United States, safe, they couldn't come to Canada and say, well, I'm a refugee, because we'd be able to say, well, no, you're not a refugee. You're safe in the United States. However, our authorities, who are always endlessly clever at trying to subvert any law that will protect our borders, have dreamed up a new evasion, and that is, we will not deport anybody, though. We will not turn back anybody if we will no longer deport them to certain countries. For instance, we won't deport people to Iraq, we won't deport people to Haiti. So if somebody comes in, even if they were safe in the United States, we will not turn them back, and we will not deport them. So we are the recipients of a large flood of these people as well. The Canadian immigration and refugee policy is designed in the interests of everybody but the Canadian people and the Canadian taxpayers. Protecting Canada and Canadians is the last matter of interest in this policy. So, as far as I can see, the Mexican invasion will continue. You know, if you're interested in immigration matters, I publish a monthly newsletter called the Canadian Immigration Hotline. I'd be glad to send you a copy if you would email me, and I'm paul@paulfromm.com. If you'd email me a snail mail address, I'd be glad to mail you a sample copy and invite you to subscribe. It's $30 a year and contains amazing stories every month, stories that will outrage you, especially in those areas that we call Health Watch and Crime Watch. I'm Paul Fromm. I'm the Midnight Man on Stormfront Radio. Catch my show every night at midnight Eastern Time on the internet at stormfront.org.